Tristan Strong, Chapter 6. Why is that on? The raft. The first thing I remember, the first thing I Sam when I rolled onto the raft was a carved staff. I don't know if that makes sense. Its golden tip, a face twisted into a snarl, stared down at me. "Who are you?" the staff's owner demanded. I stared at the tip, which moved from side to side hypnotically, like a cobra getting ready to strike. Uh, I won't ask again. Who are you? "My name is Tristan," I said. "Tristan Strong." "Tristan Strong. Well, Tristan Strong, what are you doing flopping about in the burning sea? You could have dragged us all down into a right nasty time trying to rescue you." "Sorry. Sorry don't feed the hungry." The staff lowered, though, and I finally snapped out of my trance and glimpsed who was yielding it. A short, round girl with honey brown skin and gold snake bangles curling up her arm glared at me. She looked my age, maybe a year older. Her hair was pulled back in two thick braids that disappeared behind her head, and she wore a sleeveless gold tank top, black pants with gold trim that stopped mid-calf, and brown sandals with beaded straps that tied around her ankles. Someone, no, several someones huddled behind her at the other end of the raft. A group of about a dozen clustered together, all wearing long, dingy gray cloaks with hoods that hid their faces. They stood among the rumpled leather sacks, and they clung desperately to rope handrails on the sides of the raft. My eyes shifted between them and the girl. "Well, get up," she ordered. I stood slowly. My legs jiggled like wet spaghetti, and I could barely lift my arms. Tired didn't even begin to describe it. It felt like everything, from Gum Baby to the Battle Tree to the weird Shadow Man to the burning sea to the bone chips, was piled up in a wobbly tower in my mind. Any second now it would all come tumbling down and bury me in confusion. Sometimes you just have to fight off your brain. "Who are you?" I asked the girl as I began to pull up the rope that had saved me, coiling it around one arm. "Where did you all come from?" "Why are you so nosy?" she asked. "Sorry, Never mind, we don't have time for this. Just be quiet before I throw you back." I obeyed. One of the cloaked figures in the rear shifted. "Ayana, we must go." The girl huffed and turned. As she walked by, I felt Gum Baby jerk up in my hood. "Ayana, is that you? How? Why? You're so big. Gum Baby!" Ayana dropped to her knees and swept the doll out of my hoodie and into a huge hug. "How did you? Where have you been? We looked everywhere for you. We were worried sick. You were supposed to come right back." Gum Baby only meant to stay for a few hours, but Bumbletongue here was selfish and insisted on tagging along. And then there was this whole fight over this book. She held up the waterlogged journal. "And a few hours?" Ayana held Gum Baby at arm's length and looked at her. "Gum Baby, you've been gone for a year." "What?" "Ayana, bone ships." The tallest passenger leaned over the side of the raft and pointed to the burning sea beneath us. "There," he called in a pained yip. Others craned to see, but I stared at the one who had called the warning. I must have been tired, half asleep even. His arm looked like it was covered in fur. But there was no time to linger on that. Ayana put Gum Baby down and, with the promise to talk later, dashed to the rear and jammed her staff into a knothole. "Hold tight," she called. Everyone grabbed the ropes, and my eyes grew wide. "Wait!" But it was too late. With the thrust of Ayana's stick, the raft jerked forward, and I toppled head over heels, landing in a pile of cloth. "What is propelling this thing?" "Oof!" Someone pushed me off them. "Watch it." "Sorry," I muttered, but when I turned to meet the eyes beneath the hood, I froze. They glinted yellow. And was that a snout? What the? But the person, it had to be a person, turned away as a bright orange flash seared the sky. Ayana blanched. "Why are there so many ships?" she whispered. I looked at her face, swallowed, then scooted back and peeked over the edge of the raft. "Sweet peaches," I said under my breath. Bone chips swarmed beneath us like sharks smelling food. The hands, the ribs, the jawbone. They were all there, but there were more, too. They fought and jostled to get right underneath the raft, as if at any moment we'd tumble out. We'd tumble out of the air. The sea flared with light every time one ship crashed into another, and the impact sounded like a crack of thunder. Flames shot like lava from an erupting volcano, and more than one scream echoed around me. Ayana tried to swerve and keep going forward, but another blast nearly singed the front of the raft. Toss some of those supply bundles overboard, Ayana instructed someone. We have to get higher. I'm cutting off the search and heading home. It looked like the words pained her as she turned the raft around. The search? What were they searching for? Not the journal. Gum Baby was still holding it under her arm as she clung to the handrail, looking around in confusion. Gum Baby was gone a whole year, she muttered to herself. That ain't right. I leaned over to look down at the violent sea, then sat back in a hurry and prayed we would go even faster. Gum Baby, how long did it take you to get from this place to my parents' farm? Did it take months? No, seconds, minutes, maybe. Gum Baby told you she moved like the wind. She rubbed her face in confusion. It don't make sense. Well, where are we going now? Back, she said, her squeaky voice low and sad. Back to the thicket. Where's that? Gum Baby pointed to a smoky white line in the distance, barely visible beyond the flames and the water. From here it looked like a mere smear on the horizon. I bit my lip. It's too far away, I said. The ships would get us before. Gum Baby shook her head. Ayana can make it. I hope you're right, a low voice behind us muttered. All the passengers held each other as Ayana coaxed and pleaded with the raft for more speed. The bone ships moved slowly, but others kept popping out of the deep on either side below us. Just when it looked like we'd left some pursuers behind, another three or four would lurch out of the water like the unearthed remains of prehistoric monsters. Or sea zombies. Yeah, sea zombies. They moaned with hunger and joined the chase. Finally, after the last supply bag went over the side, and just when I was wondering how far a drop it was to the ocean, we began to pick up speed. The bone ships drifted farther and farther behind us until eventually they disappeared into the flames. Several passengers exhaled in relief, but my muscles wouldn't relax, and I started to shiver. You cold? Ayana asked. We have blankets. No, I'm good. I didn't want to tell her the real reason I was shaking. I don't do heights, especially not on a flying raft with no seatbelts and flimsy ropes for railings. But it felt silly complaining about that after nearly being swallowed by an oversized science class skeleton. We kept gliding until the line of smoky white became a cloudy smudge, then a curtain of fog. Finally, the vague outline of a coast appeared. It stretched far and curved slightly in the distance, disappearing into the mist. Once everybody had settled down and a few passengers even began to chat among themselves, I scooted closer to Gum Baby and leaned over. Those ships back there. What? How? I broke off, trying to get my words together and my shivering under control. What were those things? Gum Baby picked at a smear of sap on her pants. Everyone just calls them bone ships. But what are they? Scavengers, Ayana broke in. Vultures. Someone I know calls them echoes of a nightmare from another realm. But still, they're more of a nuisance than a real danger. At least they used to be. I've seen them group up before, but never like that. But the sounds, the people I heard moaning, those are just echoes. Nothing is alive of those things. Trust me. You just heard memories from a different time. A bad time. Memories of what? But she waved me off. Not now. We're almost there. The raft slowed and started to drift lower and lower. As we sank through the wispy white clouds, leafless dead trees appeared, leaning out of the water like spears. Ayana beckoned us all close. Gather whatever you have left. We've made it to the shallows. We can wade to the shore from here. I'd rather land now than try to navigate through that mist in those trees. Leave what you can't carry or anything that would bog you down. Head for the trees, follow the signs, and we'll be back in the thicket before you know it. I started moving to the back of the raft to get out of everybody else's way, trying not to rock it. Ayana looked at me, then at Gum Baby, who climbed up on my shoulder and shook her head. I don't know what y'all did or where you came from, boy, but you might as well come with us too. If Gum Baby brought you, that makes you one of us. I coughed and Gum Baby shifted on my shoulder. but neither of us tried to argue with her. I met the little doll's eyes, and an unspoken agreement passed between us. Get to safety, and then we'll explain everything. I got the impression from Ayana's reaction that Gum Baby had done a bit more than she was supposed to do. Than she was supposed to. Ayana stared at the sea. I've never seen the Mafia's minions act like this. The Mafia? I looked from her to Gum Baby. Why would the raft touch down on the sea with a bump and a splash, making me stumble? Ayana clapped her hand over the mouth like she'd said something she shouldn't have, and moved to the center of the raft, calling out instructions. Gum Baby, I asked, why would the Mafia, not the Mafia, the Mafa? Oh, what's the Mafa? Shh. Gum Baby patted my head absent-mindedly, and scanned the area. The curtain of fog hung about 100 yards away, so close yet so far. Boy, hey, Ayana motioned to me. We need your help. The name's Tristan, not Boy. Tristan, then. We made the shallows, but the water's still too deep for some of the midfolk. Midfolk? She gestured at the cloaked people gathering their things. I shrugged. Whatever the weird cult members wanted to call each other made no difference to me. But a few of them were on the small side, and I didn't want a current to drag them back to where the bone ships waited. Sometimes you just have to join the party, no matter how strange it is. What do you need me to do? I asked, rolling up the sleeves on my hoodie. You and BF hop over the side. You two are the biggest. I'll keep the raft clear of the flames. You all take the rope and haul us to shore. The person with the yellow eyes came forward, carrying a bundle in his arms. Ayana stepped close to talk to him. Be careful, she said in a low voice. If you get tired, I will do my part, the person said. It sounded like a snarl, but Ayana didn't look offended. She just nodded. The person held the bundle out to her. Watch Chestnut, will you? She hasn't recovered yet. Of course. Ayana accepted it and cradled it like a mother would a baby. Is she? She's fine. She just scares easily. Gum Baby stood on the edge of the raft and cupped both hands around her mouth. Bumbletongue, head into the trees. My name is Tristan. Tristan, Bumbletongue. It all sounds the same. Gum Baby can't keep track. Just try and keep the journal out of the water this time, I said. It had already gotten wet once, and while I couldn't believe I was actually trusting her with it, I needed both hands free. BF, Ayana said. Give me your cloak. It'll drag you down. The person named BF nodded and then shrugged off his garment. My jaw dropped and I choked on my words. Sweet peaches, the yellow eyes, the snout. The person Ayana spoke to wasn't a person. My mind turned to goop.